Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar about product market fit, or better said, how to get from an idea into a business that works. I'm super excited to have two guests today, Torben, the country director Germany from FinTech startup Qonto, and Sebastian Frederik Jacobsen, the CEO from Mateo. He is today here with phone, so if you might not see him, we're really happy to hear you. Before we diving into the topic, I will take 1 minute to introduce myself and Uplink. I'm working as a business development manager for Uplink, and besides some other cheerful tasks, I have the pleasure to organize meetups and webinars for our community. Uplink is a network of IT freelancers, and you can find their meetups, webinars, other benefits for freelancers and exciting projects. So if you don't know us yet, maybe you want to check us out later. The whole webinar today will be recorded, and during the webinar, you have the possibility to ask your questions. We will talk afterwards in the Q&A part. Therefore, you can post your questions at the toolbar. You find the poll Ask a Question, and you also have the possibility to upvote the questions of the other guests. Now, I'm very happy to introduce Torben and Sebastian. Maybe before we're diving into the topic, it would be cool if you can introduce yourself in a few sentences and tell us a bit more about your company. Maybe, Torben, you want to start?
Sure, thank you, Nick. Hello, everyone. Super happy to be here. Maybe just a few words about me. I'm Torben. Like Nick said, I'm the country director for Qonto in Germany, so I'm responsible basically for the German market. Qonto is a fintech startup, as you said. We're focused only on B2B. So what we're doing is we're a business finance solution for small and medium-sized companies, startups, freelancers, founders. We do business bank accounts, but also spend management, bookkeeping, cash flow management. Basically, the idea is to save your time, energy, and focus on what matters, creating value for the customers. We started out in 2017 from Paris. Since now we're operating in 4 countries, and we have over 250,000 business clients, and are thus leading in that segment European-wide. That's it from my side.
Maybe you want to continue?
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone. My name is Sebastian Frederik Jacobsen. For me today, only audio. As already mentioned, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Mateo. And what we do at Mateo, we help local businesses grow. So we provide a tool set, basically, which combines messaging and also review reputation systems, where local businesses, like, for example, your car dealership from next door or your bike shop, can grow their business through like a perfect customer experience by providing better customer service and so on. We started off in Mannheim. That's also where basically Torben and me met somehow because at university, and then moved to Berlin last year. And yeah, we're quite a young team. Started off like 1.5 years ago, and super happy to be here today and to go into some deep dives about product market fit.
Perfect. We're happy to have you here. Maybe before we go into like the precise strategies and topics like that, maybe with a few words, you can describe what a product market fit means to you personally and your product.
I can start, Sebastian.
Sure, go ahead.
I mean, product market fit can be considered, I guess we're talking about the initial product market fit, but it's also interesting to look at it on a feature level maybe. To me, what does it mean if you have product market fit? It means organic growth, stable retention, and customer satisfaction. And I think that's how we orient ourselves and what we're aiming for as a product, but also on a feature level. And interestingly, most product leaders that I talk to are not focused on the initial product market fit, but instead they're focused more on expanding their value proposition after they've achieved product market fit. But it probably shouldn't be the focus today. So the idea is really how can you get that initial product market fit, which is so important because other actions afterwards shouldn't happen in terms of marketing and so on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting to hear. As you already mentioned, Torben, I think it's really a matter of like the stage you're in, because like once you're bigger, like for example Qonto, I believe product market fit like has somehow a different definition than it is like if you're a really early stage like we are. For us, I mean, we started off in the prop tech sector, and first, like last year, we created like a property management solution for property managers, where they were able to automate the communication between landlords, tenants, service providers, and so on. And then we realized, okay, it actually really works, but only the communication part works. So that was like really awesome. Like it worked like a charm. On the other hand side, like we had many CRM like features, like for example, we showed like the houses, we showed different flats, the tenants and so on. And then we realized quite quickly that the real usage was only when it comes to communication, and that all our customers, they used our tool for communication with the tenants, with the owners and so on. And then we also realized, okay, the main usage was actually not via our native app, which we developed, or like web app basically, but it was like through messengers. So for example, WhatsApp, Instagram, and so on. That's like how they wanted to communicate. And that's then when we made our shift early this year, which is quite fresh. So for many on the call, maybe even the first time you've heard of it, if you follow Mateo for a longer time, that we actually made the shift in early 2022, where we then said, okay, let's focus only on customer communication. Let's focus only on customer experience and service. And let's dive in really deep into this topic. And as of today, I mean, we have over 20 different industries who are live on our system. We have more than 40 customers currently. And yeah, it's really, really great to have like this really awesome early traction and a rapid growth from week to week. And yeah, that's really, really great. And that's for us, that's somehow like that's our definition of product market fit. So we found something which really works, where there's a huge market behind, and which is now ready to scale. So, and I mean, for me, like the most interesting KPI is really getting into Tune. So that's the tool where we track our daily usage, and to really see like how many messages get sent through Mateo each day. And it's really like huge numbers. So I can't say too much about it, but like it's really, really awesome.
Amazing. So it was quite a journey until you find out like the real product market fit. Maybe to start at the initial version, what would you say? How did you start building the first version of it? Based on what?
Yeah, I would say it's really all about talking to customers on a daily basis. So I think there's no magic behind it. So you learn a lot in university for sure. I mean, Torben, you can agree. But in the end, it's always like, I mean, it's actually quite simple. So it's only like talking to customers, getting the feedback, iterating on this feedback, getting the data in to your company, like really tracking like the usage, tracking all the different kind of KPIs that are relevant for your business. And then once you track those KPIs, once you track those customer touch points and talk to the customer, and then you basically just act upon this insight and create the next version. And that's, I think it's a process. Some startups are faster. Some startups take some time. Like for example, in our case, took us like roughly 11 months until we found product market fit. But yeah, so it always depends, I would say.
And I think there's a lot of bullshitting yourself as well sometimes involved when you talk to people and when they invest in marketing, for example, and say that they've reached product market fit, but actually sometimes you tend to lie to yourself probably because you're not fully there yet. So that's what we've seen with some of the companies that we work with. Some of them are also our customer. It can happen. There's no shame in it. It's just you need to be honest with yourself. I think it's really what Sebastian said, basically going from the surface level to deep understanding and going deeper and deeper, basically as you narrow your target audience, as you understand it better. In the case of Qonto, it was our two founders, they basically started something before together. It was something completely different. It had something to do with e-cigarettes. I'm not going more into detail. but they exited that successfully, but realized while they were doing that, they realized that their business banking experience was really not up to the standard of what they had seen for B2C. And they were constantly annoyed by the customer service, how long it took them to get back when they wanted to send, for example, money to the US and US dollars and so on. It all took too long, and they said there must be a better way. And that's why they set out to build this product with really a very simple mock-up with partners that did the core banking system and so on. So at the beginning, it was very scrappy, I would say. But they realized that the first 100 customers were relatively easy to find. Of course, it gets harder the more you look. But they took that as a good sign. And what Sebastian said regarding talking to customers, there's really no substitution for it. But you have to be careful also with these customer interviews, I would say. So a bad customer interview is even worse than not doing a customer interview, I would say. So you can really basically force your hypothesis on someone by saying, that's a good idea, isn't it? If you do that, you will always seem to validate your hypothesis. But really, you should find out in a different way. Sometimes the person you're talking to doesn't really know what they want, kind of the Apple approach. So you really need to ask, okay, so you think this is a pain point, but how often do you do it? Or, okay, so what do you do about it? And then you find out this person has a simple hack that takes very simple, so probably wouldn't pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Like before my time of founding a startup, I was like working at SAP. And I was actually like part of the SAP App House team in Heidelberg. And it was all about like doing customer interviews. Like that was like the day-to-day job of this team actually. Like design thinking, how it was called back in the days. I mean, it still is a thing, but like back in the days, it was like even a bigger thing, I think. And it was all about like, as you said, Torben, like asking the right questions and like not guiding the customer too much or like the end user, but like really asking open-ended question and really like trying to not influence the answers by your questions. So I think that's like really a big thing to master. Yeah.
Cool. So customer communication is definitely key here. But besides that, are there like classical models or approaches? How are like the different steps or phases when developing the product market fit? Are there like, do you sit down before and make like really a precise strategy how you want to approach that theme? Or was it more like coming now and then? I mean, I already heard that the ways are super individual here, but maybe you can tell us about your experiences. Torben, maybe you want to start.
Yeah, I can think about our shift basically when we said at the beginning because at the very beginning in 2016 I wasn't there. Full disclosure, there was just our two co-founders. But basically, we shifted from only having a business bank account to having more of a finance management solution. And the reason for that were lots of interviews with CFOs, CEOs. What is the most annoying thing? What can really help you in your day-to-day, and so on. So basically, what we did was we wanted to understand our target audience better, and basically to narrow it down. You have to understand we said before, okay, our target segments are like basically based on the number of employees, but those are really big segments when you look at the number of companies in Germany. So it needed to be narrower in terms of industry and so on. So you can go really deep, really specific, and there's a lot of data out there that allows you to do that. For the problem you're solving, that's the second thing. So you really need to go from surface to deep understanding, like I said, and you can really think about, okay, what is kind of the outcome that you want to, that the user wants, and their motivation behind it, and the gaps that they experience with their current solution. So you kind of need to see, okay, that's what they want, that's what we offer. How can we do that? And I think then what we do is look at the value proposition and to basically go on a sub-benefit level. So it's usually not enough to say, okay, we want to do this, but on a sub-benefit level. And then you need to think about, okay, how can we differentiate ourselves? What are the main channels? How can we monetize on that? And so on. So that's usually the steps that we go for.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree on that. For us, again, I just make it like really on our example. So for us, this was all about starting in the property management sector last year. So it was like really focus, really like target niche, I would say. And then we figured out like, okay, what's the fit? Like for us, it was like the communication part and the service part basically in our software. And then we realized, okay, we found something here. It was quite easy to find actually through this like very narrow focus on property managers and this very like target group, small target group actually. And then we made the second step where we then said, okay, let's take this communication part and this customer service part, or some may also call it messaging suite, and let's make it now industry agnostic, and let's like offer it for all different kind of SMEs in Europe. And so that basically was like our process to really start with a small group, small focus, and figure out your product really well and your market fit, and then put it to scale.
And even before that, when you just had the idea, what were like kind of the first steps when developing a first prototype? Like how I can imagine these like really like the initial steps.
Yeah, I mean, like the first steps were like we had like this one investor on board, like called Stix Urban Investments, like it's a prop tech VC from Mannheim, and they have something called the Stix Living Lab, and that's basically like a real life testing infrastructure where we were able to like directly test and validate our solution in a real like property management environment, like actually like a property manager from Mannheim, and some like local businesses from Mannheim. And that's basically some kind of real life lab, so to say, which really helped us enormously to really validate what we do at Mateo and to achieve product market fit. And I think that's quite unique. So everyone like who's on the call, I can recommend to check out like Stix Urban Investments and their approach on the Stix Living Lab. You find some information on Medium, for example. And yeah, I think that's really helped us to have like the safe playground, so to say. But like not like an artificial playground, but actually like a real life environment where we did a lot of shadowing, where we did a lot of like rapid testing, and then like redeveloped like from week to week our product basically.
Cool. So you had the perfect environment and received feedback like super shortly with doing that, right?
Yeah,
cool.
Exactly.
Yeah, we did similar things in the past when we think about, for example, tax advisors. We really want to understand how they interact with their clients, which are also our clients. So we had to distinguish kind of between who's sometimes the user of our product versus who's the buyer. So that's also something that some people might need to think about. Okay, like who's using the product versus who's making the buying decision. That's also, at least in our case, it was super relevant to also think about that.
So can you explain a bit more so you meant like you needed to understand like the tax advisors because they're also your client using like a business account. You mean?
Yeah, exactly. So basically our clients are, let's say, a handwerker, like a craftsman or someone else, right? Or it can be another traditional company, it can be a startup. And usually they work together with tax advisors, right? To do their taxes. And basically, if you make the life of the tax advisor easier, they will recommend you more as a bank account. And you will also save the time of your client because the interaction between the client and the tax advisor will be reduced. So you want to understand both needs sometimes.
Cool. In general, what we both say now, we talked a lot about the approach, customer communication, and these things on this journey. We always love to hear, of course, what are kind of the worst practices you learned most about when looking back from now?
Yeah, I think one thing we did in Germany, well, I don't know what if it was bad practice or not, but we really did like an MVP approach when we entered the market. So of course, from a compliance side, it was ready, but we launched, for example, with a French IBAN in Germany, and we thought it was good. It was on paper, it didn't make a difference, but in reality, sometimes you get a bit surprised what is happening. So there is IBAN discrimination. So some banks don't accept your IBAN if you're from a different country. And then also customers maybe don't trust you. They don't want the French IBAN. So that's what we realized very quickly. Okay, we need the German IBAN. So we changed it. Over time, though, I think it was a good approach that we did this kind of iteratively and changed a few things. It really depends on your level of ambiguity, I would say. So the more certain you are, the more you can think about basically anything you're doing with the product or with your company on a sequential level, kind of planning it actually out. But the more uncertain it is, the more you kind of need to do this MVP approach and basically be embarrassed about your product and so on. Yeah.
To get the feedback like really as early as possible, probably to do all the adaptations.
I think that's like really interesting what you're saying, Tom, like to be embarrassed about your product. So for us, I mean, especially like I think as young founders, you're always like, okay, you've actually built the best product in the market. Like that's the initial mindset you have like as a first-time founder, I would say. And then like at least for me personally, like that's really a personal thing. In the first like 3 months of like our founding career, like I realized, okay, actually it's okay like to launch with a shitty product, and it's actually okay like to receive like negative feedback, and that's just like part of the game. And then like to be like really honest to yourself, like that's like really something very personal I learned, to really like be honest to myself and see, okay, actually like I think it's a great product and I think it's a great design, but like our customers, like in the early days, like back in last year, they said, okay, actually like I like the design, but actually like this feature is not working, this is missing. And like once I realized that you really have to be like somehow self-critical and really listen to your customer like really deep in, and then like also be willing enough to really like rebuild everything, like should just put away like everything which is old and just to rethink it from the start and put away maybe like 1 month of work effort, so to say. That's, I think, a unique skill to have. I mean, if you're a larger company, of course, you should avoid it for sure because like it's super cost intensive. But like if you're a small team of 4, like we were like back in the days, then that's something like totally legit to do. And so I think that was like one of the big learnings, which also helped us now like to really achieve this rapid growth in a few weeks and to really like scale our business now.
I think that also means that the number one no-go, I guess, is not learning and not being clear of what you want, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, for us, like for just like to make it really, for like our listeners to make it really concrete. So for example, we have like a Notion database where we really like summarize all the learnings we made over the last 2 years, I would say. Like, I mean, even before Mateo, we had like different smaller projects, and we have like this one massive database where we share like all our learnings we made throughout the process, even like for new employees who join the journey now. So currently we're also hiring. So if anyone is here on the call looking for a new job, feel free to apply for sure. And like if someone joins like our startup, we always like, that's the first thing we actually show them, like this database of knowledge and of mistakes we made and learnings we made out of those mistakes. And I think that's like, in the end, that's like really the valuable part.
You also need to know what you're optimizing for. Sebastian, what I'm curious about, as you did the shift, has your North Star metric kind of changed? Because you mentioned a lot about kind of messages sent and so on.
Yeah, like definitely. So back in the days, it was all about like the number of flats on Mateo. So it was all about like getting more flats under management. That was like the main metric we had. now, like after our shift, it's all about, as you said, like more the product focused KPIs like messages sent. So that's like really a big metric for us. Then there are some others which I can't share yet, but like one of the biggest metrics I would say is really like messages sent per day.
Nice. Yeah, for us, it's because we're somewhat at a later stage, it's revenue. Because the more our customers also use our product, the more revenue is generated. If you spend with your business card, then there's interchange fee. So we get more revenue from the merchant and so on. So it's kind of aligned. So that's why it makes sense for us to have the revenue metric, but it also developed over time.
Mm-hmm. And how, in general, would you say, are you testing your product market fit? I mean, you already said something about it, but how are there like specific changes when the testing strategy is changing, or how can I imagine that when it comes to new things, and do you sit together and have working actively on a new strategy from now or then, or how is that whole process going?
Yeah, I can start off maybe to answer
Sure.
this question. So for us, I would say it's really like a highly agile process. So it's really like changing from, I would say, month to month, as we are learning and as we are like getting our focus in now. I think one of the biggest factors really like being data driven. So that's like it all turns around data for us in our company. So we really track like how the customer uses the product, and then besides like tracking this quantitative data, we also like track qualitative data, where we actually like talk to customers, and really it's all about like talking to customers like on a day-to-day level, and really understanding them, and then like comparing this qualitative data to the quantitative facts and seeing, okay, how do they use it, and like how many messages get sent, for example, like how long are they using the product from day to day, how's the retention rate, how's the sign-up rate, like how quickly is the onboarding process, which is only like a few minutes actually. All those metrics are like really key for us, and I think like for any other startup as well, like you should always like have this combination between qualitative data points and then quantitative, which is like more like the hard facts.
Yeah, I agree. What we do from our side, we use a tool called Chatomil, which basically allows us, it's kind of like bringing all these different data lakes of customer conversations, because we do have a lot of interaction with them on chat, on email, and so on, also from the review platforms together, and to kind of categorizes it automatically to see what the biggest problems are. If you want to search for something, you can just look for it. So that's also really useful in terms of making the qualitative data, let's say, also a bit more quantitative. Super useful for us. But again, you also need to understand sometimes the limits of it in a way. So sometimes you wouldn't hear certain things which would actually make the product a lot better. So it's not always 100% reliable. You still need to think about it and put some brain into it.
Yeah, it always depends where we put the spotlight on, right? And then actually when you have like all the data and stuff, just like I'm super interested how it goes further process wise. What are like kind of the things that are impacting your decision to actually make adjustments in the product? I mean, there's so much feedback and so much data. How is the process going in your company till you work further on the product, or what is impacting your decisions regarding that?
Yeah, I mean, I can start again. So for us, it is really like we have like a weekly session actually, like in our founder team. It's like always Fridays. And like each Friday, like what you also mentioned, Tom, I mean, for us, it's in a smaller scale. So we don't need a tool yet, or like not like a tool which combines those data lakes, because actually like the tool is like our brain. So like each week, like we get together in a small meeting and like talk about like all the different data and all the different insights we got throughout the week. and like actually collect this information and talk about and discuss about it. And then I think it's really about making then fast decisions, and to actually not only fast decisions, but actually to actually make a decision. I think that's like really what we learned. That it's all about like deciding on stuff and saying, okay, that's something we want to do, and that's something we don't want to do, and to not like have too many topics on hold or on let's talk about it next year or next week or next month. So I think that's like really a big topic to make decisions quite quickly. And that's what we do then each Friday, actually. Then we, like, once we discussed about the different data points and the different insights we got, then we decide, okay, let's create a new working package out of this. Let's create a new feature out of this, or let's think about this feature again. And then we create like a task for next week and the next month. And also have like, for sure, I mean, it's not only like short term, it's also long term. So we then also have a look on our product roadmap and actually like align and see, okay, is the product roadmap still set up correctly, or do we have to make any adjustments based on the learnings we had last week? And I think then again, the big challenge, and I think that's something that I'm also quite interested in your answer, Torben, because the big challenge, I think, is to not overreact actually. So to not make decisions too fast, or to not, for example, like if one customer tells me, okay, this button should be red and not green, or this should be called that way, then not to change it directly just because like 1 or 2 or maybe even 10 customers told me to do it, but to really also take some time and analyze and think about it in our team, or like in your team, like it's on another scale, but it's the same thing, I think, to really like get this learning and not to overreact on different topics. So I think those are like the points.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, ideally you A/B test a lot of these things, but in reality you cannot do it. We're also capacity constrained, and you cannot test everything, whether the button should be red or blue. So at the end of the day, you kind of need to make a judgment call on a lot of these things and not overreact. So yeah, I think that's definitely something we do as well. And I think what our challenge in a way also sometimes is, and maybe Sebastian, you have the same thing, it's what are the customer's needs now versus in 5 years, and what do you cater to? Do you focus on the customer needs in the future, or do you focus on the ones right now? In our case, for example, in Germany, German companies still use a lot of cash, and they withdraw a lot of money. They also want to deposit the money. And that's totally fair, but it's different in other markets. It's a bit more card heavy already, and it's just a matter of time until it goes there. So the question is, how do you account for that? How much? Because it's always a matter of priority. Mm-hmm. How do you prioritize that versus other things? At the end of the day, you want to do it. You want to do a lot of things, but you can only do so many things. So you need to prioritize really, really hard.
Yeah, I think that's like, I totally agree. So for us, like what we have this short-term plan on our roadmap, then we have like mid-term plan, and then we also have like this long-term topics basically. And I think, as you said, Torben, it's all about prioritizing things. And I think that's something we managed quite well in the last few months. In the beginning, I think it was a huge challenge for us. I think that's like always the same for first-time founders, to actually set the right priorities. But as of today, I think we, like one of our product guys called Philip and Dominic, like they really implemented a system based on some methods I can't share yet publicly. But implemented is really like unique and really works out quite well when it comes to like setting the right priorities and getting actually stuff done in a short matter of time. And it's not only about getting stuff done, but getting the right stuff done. I think that's the big challenge to actually tackle and to get right. And yeah, so I can only agree, Torben.
Yeah, I think being entrepreneurial means being entrepreneurial with your time and with your resources. You need to really, at the beginning, you will be always stretched, And to a certain degree, we are in the German team as well. So like you really need to think about, okay, what do you spend your time on?
Absolutely. One last question I would be super keen to hear more about is what are your like advices when it actually comes to positioning, to the field of positioning? Are there any learnings you can share? Any key things that mostly work out super well?
Well, it depends on what you're doing, right? You mean in terms of your brand positioning and product positioning? There's different aspects to it, I guess, compared to your competitors. You mean?
Exactly. Yeah. When it comes to the product positioning.
Yeah. I think in general, I think one mistake that some companies might do is to only look at the direct competitors. But you also need to understand that there might be other services that are someone substitutes, and you really need to have a look at those as well. So I think that's what you need to do, and then you need to basically see, okay, how can you differentiate yourself? Do I need to differentiate yourself? It also depends on the size of the market. In most cases, you need to differentiate yourself, and just go from there. I think it needs to be authentic in a way. So I think that's what Sebastian and his founding team, they know each other, I think, from university already.
Yeah, more than 8
and
years,
from
actually.
working. Yeah, more, even longer. Okay. And it's just authentic, right? The solutions that you're working on, you kind of found your own soul in a way, no matter which services you do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as you said, Tom, like I think it's different for each company, and it always depends on the market you're in and the product you offer. For us, I mean, we operate in a massive market, so for us, it's all about getting market shares. I mean, that's no magic. I mean, it's similar with other companies. For us, it's all about getting shares, and then I think in the end, like that's something which is really important to me and to really mention and highlight in this call today. And that's also the one thing that should stick to your mind if you go out of this call in a few minutes. It's all about like getting the details right. I think that's like really the big topic, to really differentiate yourself through some small details, for example, customer service, for example, branding, and to really like find those small details which are different to like all the other players on the market, and to really stand out through those details. And I think one big aspect for Mateo is to really have a huge human connection to our customers and to really be super close. And for us, what I always like to tell them, like we are one boat actually. So like it's not you're the customer and we are like the company who offers the service, but like actually like we're sitting in the same boat, and we want you to grow, because if you grow, we will grow. And I think that's like a big mindset thing, which is really like unique for Mateo, I would say. And that's what I think also our customers, they really value this like positioning, to really think about us not as like a product or as a service, but to really think about us as a partner and a long-time partner, like who's actually like in the same boat than our customer, and to really be like on eye level, I would say, like to really be on the same, like to be on the same steering wheel, so to say, and like to steer the boat together. So, and that's really working out awesome for Mateo. And yeah, so that's all I can say for this topic.
So one thing is like having a comprehensive view on your competitors, and the other one highlighting authentic, all the pros, and being authentic in the mission, I guess. Cool. So normally we would now come to our Q&A part. Maybe to the audience, you can feel free to ask your question or share maybe your journey where you're currently, and then we are like more than happy to talk about it. Maybe we give them a few seconds to get rid of their questions. Pretty silent today. Normally when we organize like webinars, there is one, we get quite a few questions, but often it's like more specific, then it's a bit easier. There's one question. Apologies, this was already discussed. No worries, we're happy to answer it again. But how did you manage to move from a corporate to an entrepreneurial life?
Yeah, so I think that's like a question for me. That's actually a good question, to be honest. And I could talk like for hours about this topic. So I think like one aspect I would like to share, SAP like is a great employee. So I would move back anytime if I wouldn't have Mateo or like this entrepreneurial life now. So it was not about like, I didn't quit because I didn't like SAP. SAP is like even now, like we are actually quite in close contact with SAP. So I've got many of my friends who still work at SAP, and it's really like we think more about SAP as a partner and as like someone who's like really close to our hearts still. And so it was not about like quitting because I was somehow, or like, I think I can speak for our whole team. It was not about quitting because we were frustrated, or I don't know if this is something you may think about. It was more about that we realized that there's a big issue to solve in the market. And that's basically, and we had this passion to solve this issue. And then we just did it. And then, I mean, like my manager at SAP, like he was super supportive all the way along. And I think that's always like super helpful. And I mean, we will see like in a few years, maybe even sooner. So I can't share too much on this topic yet. So I hope you bear with me. But I mean, I can just say SAP is still very close in our hearts. That's all I can say for now.
Yeah, from my perspective, I did a stint in a startup before I started working full time. So I had a first breath of it, let's say, and then I consulted traditional banks and insurances as a management consultant for several years. And during that time, I had the chance to basically work with a traditional bank who said, okay, we want to build a new bank. Let's build it from scratch, and let's get these guys in to help. And that's where I was on there for 12 months. And I realized, okay, it's really fun to be on a project for longer and to really build something and to see it grow instead of just doing 5 or 6 week projects. And that's when I decided to move more on the entrepreneurial side. To be fair, I'm not a founder in that sense. So I think Sebastian, in that sense, has experienced a lot. But for the German market, we're also a startup within the scale up. So we are also on a journey here in the German market, and it's super exciting. It's been super rewarding, and also we're learning a lot every day.
I mean, Torben, like in my mind, like you are somehow a founder. I still remember like how you actually moved into like our co-working space in the first days, and then like build up like this team here in Germany. So I think like that somehow it's a founder role.
Yeah.
Maybe the next question was kind of like a similar, what would you role as an employee would be helpful to become an entrepreneur? And also what I think is pretty interesting, you worked in the position as a consultant. Would you say it's like, maybe like personally in your case, it was super helpful to have that view from a consultant of so many different projects, or do you think it doesn't matter if it's like that point of view, or you were like a long-term employee, for example, before for like 5 years?
Yeah. There's many different roads, to be honest, that you can take. There's not the one ideal one. And I wouldn't necessarily say that going from a consulting background would necessarily help you a lot. What you do learn as a consultant is problem solving and also being organized. So that's the two things. But besides that, yeah, you do see some other context. I think what many people who want to found a company, what they do is maybe they first join a startup as a chief of staff role. I think that's quite common that people started and then found their own afterwards. I think I've seen that in the past.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think like what's really maybe one thing to add to this answer from my side you shouldn't force yourself into a role.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't, like, for example, you shouldn't say, okay, I need to now be a consultant in order to then do this and that. Even like if you hate consultancy, for example, just like to give you an example. So I think you should always do like what feels best for you and what is most natural for you. And you should just like follow your intuition. I think it's hard. I don't know, like it's not hard to find your intuition, but if you just like do what you're good at, then you will succeed like in any matter. So I think that's always all about like doing what you actually enjoy and what you love. Like that's what I did. And I always did like what I love, and I always did like what feels good to me and where I think I'm good at. And then it turns out that I'm actually really good at this thing. And to really like just follow the path you are kind of naturally. I mean, if you think you're a good developer, then go for development, and then someday I think you can found like from any position. It's always about getting the right teammates on this journey. I think it's never like about being solo entrepreneur. I think there are some solo entrepreneurs like, and I really have like huge respect for them, but it's always about like, if you're good at one thing, then get like people into your team like who are good at the stuff you can't do. And that's what we did at Mateo. So we founded with like a total of 4 founders. And like each one of us is so diverse, like we are so different in terms of skill set, in terms of what we do and what we can't do also. And we complete each other like in a perfect sense. And I think that are like my 2 cents I wouldn't want to add, like just to really think about your founding team and to realize what are you good in and what you're not good in. And then to actually like get this perfect recipe or perfect mixture. And then, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also heard a lot from like founders or how they found each other, even so if they might be not that lucky already to have like a couple of friends or people, you know, at university, that they start going to conferences and meet up and stuff and talk to the same people with the same interests business wise, and then often they found their co-founders and people they start to found a startup there. So totally agree on that. One other question, it's a bit more specific. Do you use tools to collect customer feedback when it comes to that? I think it probably goes in that direction to evaluate it and kind of have like clear options to work on that.
Yeah. I also send a message underneath. So I think what I mentioned for chat and email, we use Intercom to collect that feedback, and we ask our customers regularly. Also from a Net Promoter Score, where they can put details in it after 1 month, after 6 months, after 12 months, and you see kind of the evolution. But besides that, if you do customer interviews, we just catalog them on Notion. So Notion is our knowledge base or knowledge management system, and we just do it there. So it could be anything, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think like tools are like only like something like only like a supporting pillar. So it's not about a tool, it's about like your methodology and how you use the tools. I think that's like always the same.
Absolutely. Especially with Notion, we also use it internally. I feel like you can do everything there. It's like super cool, right? From journaling to building basically a CMS there. I know people who use it really for everything. One other question. You talked about being entrepreneurial with your time and the challenge as a founder to get your priorities right. What are your lessons learned? How do you manage when you do not get the details right?
To be honest, I don't really like get the question 100%.
I'm trying to.
Maybe Augustina, like you mentioned, to really like. What I said, like it's in the beginning really important to like get your priorities right and to like do the right things. But I don't really I don't know like what you meant with getting the details right.
Maybe she means something like how to deal with in the beginning when you overwhelmed by all the any lessons learned about the time and frustration management? Probably kind of in the beginning when there are too many tasks and you start to prioritize them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a journey. So I think like it's the same journey for everyone. So it's always about, I think there's also no right or wrong, to be honest. So there's not this one way to go. It's always about setting priorities, setting focuses. And then sometimes, of course, you set your priorities wrong. So you think like this topic is prior 1, but actually like it's prior 2 or prior 3. So I think that's something you just learn along the way to actually really realize what tasks are like high priority and which tasks may wait. So that's something you can get right at the beginning out of intuition, but like over the time and as you grow as a founder, you grow in terms of setting the right priorities and to making the right time estimates. And that's something which hurts in the beginning, to be really honest. So in the early days, like back in last year or even like 2 years ago, of course, like you set priorities wrong. You maybe do a marketing video. Instead, you should have done customer interviews, for example. And I think that's something which is quite important in Germany, to be more honest about those topics, to like talk about your mistakes and to learn out of them and then like to fix them. And I mean, for me, like I'm quite honest with it. Like for us, for example, it was like we did some marketing videos. It was like a different company before, like it's more like a side project, to be honest. Like it was called 10 out of 10, which was kind of a sustainable clothing brand. It was not really like a startup. It was like more like a side project besides university. And we did a lot of marketing videos with this fashion brand, but we didn't care too much about talking to our customers if they actually liked the shirt. Like if it was actually like a nice shirt, if it was like nicely designed. But we had really great videos. Because we thought it's all about like getting the great videos, and that was like prior number 1. And actually like it was like the shirt itself. And I mean the shirt was sustainable, so it was made really sustainably and was like not produced like in it's a different topic, but like it was really nice shirt in terms of quality. But but we should have cared more about the design of the shirt, like the print and so on. And and that's I think always part of the journey, and you learn out of it. And now at Mateo, I think we are quite good at setting the right priorities. And I think it's always about like having this quick feedback loops. And then learning out of your mistakes and getting better day for day.
So basically summarize to have the right mindset, right? To see every failure as
exactly.
You can grow on and be like aware that in the beginning there might be more of these lessons to be learned.
Yeah, and I mean also like this whole
waiting.
Yeah, and also this whole topic about not talking about your mistakes. So like if you think, especially if you think about Germany, so I grew up actually in Asia, and then like when I moved to Germany for my studies, it's different in Germany. It's different. Like people tend, or at least like a few years ago, it now got a lot better, I think. But a few years ago, like it was like kind of like people didn't talk about their fuck ups, or they didn't talk about what went wrong publicly. I mean, they did it in private for sure, but I mean, like a few years ago, there were no like this kind of startup failure events where it was actually like back in a few years, like people started off with those events where they talked about their mistakes, and it was like a really big thing and awesome thing. But like back in 2010, for example, when I was still at school, like that was actually like not a topic at all, or at least I didn't realize that it was a topic. That like startup founders talked about, or even like not only startup founders, also like in corporates. I mean, it's the same for everyone. Like back in the days, like people didn't talk about their mistakes or like their learnings or however you want to call it. So it doesn't matter. and that changed a lot, and that's really good that it changed.
Totally agree. And coming to the beginning of your startup, there's one question from Paul. Did you start out full time on your startup? If not, what is the most important piece of advice on how to manage job and startup in parallel?
I think that's again a question for me.
Probably.
Full time. That's the answer. So like back in the days when I was still at university, I worked at SAP, and I mean it was just like more as a hobby, I would say. So we had some university projects, for example, different projects. So we also had like a project where we did some drone deliveries for other like medical drone deliveries, for example. But it was like a university project. So in terms of like we had a lecture, and then we developed this was called like improds back in the days. So you can even like Google it, and you will find like a newspaper article about improds, where we like developed this drone delivery thing for medical stuff in countries where there's like bad infrastructure. And that was something which was awesome. And I mean, if you read the news, like there are startups who are now doing it like very successfully. For us, it was like only a university project. We learned a lot, and the differences between this university project and the guys who are like doing it full time, that once you do something full time, it will succeed no matter what. And you have to be resilient, I would say, and you have to stick with the topic. You have to iterate on it. That's what we did. and you have to like, I mean, if you're just committed full time, and you have this big vision and this big dream, then anything will work out. That's at least my opinion. And you have to be flexible enough, and you shouldn't stick too much to your own. How should I say? I mean, back in the days, for example, we had like Heyana, like that was the first startup, or like the first iteration, so to say, on the journey. It was like a B2C matchmaking for flatmates, or like Tinder for flatmates. So similar to WG gesucht, but like more personal and with videos and all this kind of stuff. And in my mind, it was all about, okay, that's the next big thing, and it will work out, and we will like get this big VC funding, and it will be like the huge global company. And then we realized, okay, yeah, true. But then it was all about, okay, let's see like how's the market, let's see like all the different aspects along the way. And I think you should be like open to change. And that's what we were, and that's how we now succeed.
Absolutely. Two more questions that's maybe already like kind of going in the same direction. How did you survive the first months, years when nobody believed in you and founded your idea? But maybe also like one question for me: when was the point at the startup you were just talking about where you were, okay, now it's time to do something else, and I should not keep on following that idea? What was happening in your head till you made this decision? Because probably I can imagine it's not easy to let something go you were so hardly working on.
Trick question. No, I can answer it really quick. Like my answer is like always believe in yourself, and not stick to the idea too much, or like to your product. Mm-hmm. So not stick to it too much, but like be open-minded, talk to people a lot, to different people, like talk to different people from different bubbles, and just believe in yourself, and know your values, know your skill set, know your team, like know the capabilities of your team, and once I think everyone like who's in this call today, like they all know like what they're capable of. And just like have this self-esteem, like just believe in yourself. So that's it.
Totally agree. One last question. How do you approach first customers or users? Probably you also, I don't know how your journey was about. You probably need to distinguish here between like having test users. Did your product was for free first and then you get into a paid version? Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'll start again, Torben, and you can add.
Yeah,
it's quite interesting to also see the perspective of Qonto on this topic, or your opinion on it. For us, it was like we never had a free version, and that's like somehow our belief. So because like if there's a free version, people tend to give you positive feedback. That's my opinion, at least, because they say, okay, it's for free, So yeah, it's great. But once they pay for it, they're quite harsh with you, and they're quite honest with you, and they really give you the feedback you want, you need. And so that's I mean, you should never give something out for free. That's at least my opinion, or that's how we did it. I mean, there can be other ways how it can work out, but like for us, it was like we always charged the customer from day one, and that's how we got this really good feedback, and that's how we actually managed to really build up Mateo like successfully. But I mean, there are other ways to do it for sure, but that's the way for us.
Yeah, it's funny because it was the same for us. So we never had a free plan, a free price, let's say. We started with 3 different price plans, and we share the similar beliefs. So basically, you get better customer feedback if you don't force your way through free accounts and so on. Also, we believe that it's because one of the things that we wanted to differentiate ourselves in is the pricing, no hidden fees. And it's not possible in banking to not have hidden fees if you don't charge anything for the account. So that's why that's how we ended up there. But I think what I can share from the early days at Qonto was also that at the very beginning it was friends and family. So those were kind of the first customers, and then they hired the first salesperson who was then the head of sales, and he also had a network before, and he basically just focused on lighthouse clients at the beginning. So basically just knocking on people's doors, for example, securing Doctolib, which is big. Then he could mention Doctolib in other meetings, and then it had kind of a spiraling effect. And at some point it was so big that they had to do like an inbound channel where you also see the leads coming in through the website. At the beginning, we didn't even really have a functioning website. Of course, we had one, but it didn't really account for these kind of leads and to track them. So that's what we built up afterwards.
Maybe one topic, maybe just to add on this free plan. So I think, I mean, we started off without a free plan, and we still don't have a free plan yet, but we will have a free plan in a few months, actually, or weeks. And so that's something you can check out our website. So I think like it's always a thing about timing. So when to offer what, and I think that's like a big topic to get your head around. And yeah.
Absolutely. I can totally relate as from the view of a customer regarding to the things. As soon as you're paying for a tool, your expectation are automatically kind of higher, and then probably you get also more validated feedback here.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Cool. I think now there are not, we don't have any more questions so far. It was really a pleasure talking to you. It would be amazing if everyone who joined us today could take part at the feedback survey. It really helps us to organize more events like that. In general, this was the deep dive of our event series joined with Qonto on the topic how to scale up your business. We have already planned the next event on the 14th of July and then we will talk about how to successfully build a sales unit. So we try within this event series to highlight some areas of basically being an entrepreneur and building a successful startup and grown up. So it would be really cool to see you there. We already created the link. So if you're into it, we're really happy to see you there as well. Thank you so much both for your time, and have a great evening. I'm sure we see each other soon.
Yeah, have a great evening. Bye. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Sebastian. Bye-bye.